What is going on, you guys? AK40 Kevin here in the gamer heaven, and today I'm going to show you guys step by step how to install the Extreme Rate Dawn remappable paddle kit for the PS4 controller. I would give it a 10 out of 10 wrenches, as it does require full disassembly down to the chipset as well as some light soldering. But hey, if I can do it, anybody can. Let's get right into it. Alrighty guys, over here at the Stormtrooper desktop as always, where we always do our work and our unboxing. So, what you are going to need for this install is the Extreme Rate Dawn kit. This retails for $39.99 on Amazon. They have tons of different backshell designs. This is wood grain. I think that'll go very good with this white and mint theme that I've got going on here. These are all the pieces that come with that kit. You're also going to need a soldering iron. You can get one of these at Walmart for about $5. I happen to pick this one up at American Freight. You're also going to need some solder, so I'm using lead-free rosin core. This is the good stuff here. It's not as bad for you to breathe in, but because we are going to be soldering, I would also recommend having a respirator. You don't necessarily need a full-blown, sanding and painting style respirator, but at least wear a paper one. That way you kind of protect your lungs a little bit. And then of course we're going to need a donor controller. This is a bad boy here that's going under the scalpel today for surgery. We've already done a few things to this in the previous episode. We did the faceplate install, which is also from Extreme Rate, and then we also did the Control Freaks thumb caps and then face buttons. I also did paint a two-tone gradient on there on the touch button, put a custom little triangle button in there, the triggers, bumpers, little sticker on the top port there on the light bar. Overall looks pretty good. The paint is starting to fade right here on the PlayStation button, so I'm going to go ahead and repaint that matte white and use a clear coat or a sealant. Last time I didn't do that, that's why it's peeling off. And I'm also going to go ahead and hit the options and share buttons with a matte flat white as well to kind of finish up that clean custom look. So the first step to the build is obviously disassembling the PS4 controller. This kit does come with all the equipment you need to do that in this bag right here. Got me confused for a minute. So you have your tiny Phillips head screwdriver for the 4 Phillips heads in the back, and you also have this little pry bar that lets you kind of get down the seam here and crack off the front and rear shells. We've already disassembled this controller twice now, so it should be easier to break apart. Remember, I mentioned in my last build video for this controller that the very first time you disassemble a controller, it's going to be a little bit harder because the shell hasn't been separated yet, so it's going to be a little finicky for you. Alright, those 4 Phillips head screws, get your pry bar in there, you're able to separate the front and back shell. We're going to go ahead and disconnect the ribbon cable for the light bar. We're also going to disconnect the battery, as of course we don't want any power going to that board while we're soldering it or working on it. Not to mention, you need to fully disassemble a chip to even get down to the nitty-gritty of the chip where we're going to be working on it anyway. Going to go ahead and unplug this little ribbon cable here. That is for the touch bar, but it's much easier to get at it if you take off this tray here for the battery. 1 Phillips head screw holds that in place. Okay, goes flying. It's always a good sign. Now this kit does come with extra screws in case you lose any, and I also have several extras laying around my house here. So now we can disassemble this bad boy. Oh, probably want to take this off. It's blocking me from separating. There we go. Perfecto. Alright, get that touch bar out of there. Now we can leave all this in place. We're not taking off the gaskets here because, like I said, we've already done all the buttons on here. However, we will do this little home button or PlayStation button, as it does need to get repainted. Now since this is a Gen 2 or version 2, since this is a Gen 2 or version 2 PS4 DualShock 4 controller, this is the one that has some subtle differences. The bumpers are different, the triggers are a little bit less easy to break and a little bit easier to work on. And then also, the share and options buttons are actually integrated into the main board, so that's going to make painting it a little tricky. I'm just going to mask it all off and spritz it like that. But with the first gen, these would be actual buttons that would pop out, and you could just paint them separately, so something to keep in mind. So if your ribbon cable decides to pop off like mine did, obviously you just want to disconnect it from the controller itself, leave it on here, but if that does happen, you just pinch these 2 tabs and this little cover pops off like that. And then you can stick your ribbon cable back in. You obviously want to make sure that the metal prongs are facing downwards towards the board so it makes contact. There's a little pass-through for that. Snap her back in. Okay, try and keep your ribbon cable not too bent, keep it intact because this is for the touch bar. Now, if you do want the rumble force or vibration motors intact, be careful not to accidentally rip these two cords here as they are connected. Now, me personally, on an Xbox One controller, I remove the primary rumbles and the palms because that saves a third of the controller weight and gives you extra battery life. But there's also still haptic feedback motors in the triggers. So with the PS4 controller, you do not have that. So as I do want some vibration immersion in my games, I go ahead and leave in the vibration rumble force motors. If you do want to remap the functionality of the touchpad, which I really don't want to because I can't think of a single game where I would want the touchpad control on the paddles, but if you do want to do that, that is an extra soldering step that requires you to take this bad boy here, line it up with the holes right here, and then hold it in place with some double-sided tape, and then you basically solder the edge of that with a little bead right there for the button for the touchpad. I'll have a picture on screen so you guys see exactly what you need to do. Also, there is a video on the Extreme Rate YouTube page here for all of their installs and whatnot, but sometimes they're not the most clear. That's why I prefer to watch, well, somebody like myself that is going to talk through it, because it's just like electronic music and them pointing at stuff. It's not really very intuitive, but that video will go through all the additional soldering steps if you want to remap your touchpad, your L3 and R3 buttons. So I'm going to be skipping that soldering step as well because I don't really want my paddles controlling L3 and R3, considering your thumbs are already on the thumbsticks. That's the whole point of paddles, is that you basically never have to take your fingers off the paddles, so, or I'm sorry, off the thumbstick, so you can constantly change direction and aim and stuff while jumping, sliding, etc. So completely unnecessary for me to need to do the touchpad or the L3 and R3 buttons. Sorry about the wind noise. I have the fan on, it's very hot in here, and I'm not going to put myself in discomfort for this video. So anyway, here's the actual chipset here. Now as you see, these are labeled L3 and R3. If you are not going to be remapping L3 and R3, as we are not, you can just go ahead and yoink these bad boys off. Get them up out of the way. You know, I probably will be doing this install again on another controller for either a client, either a customer, or, you know, just like as a gift for someone, maybe a giveaway or maybe a Christmas present or something. And on that one, I will do the L3 and R3 and the touchpad so they have full remapping just for, you know, the point of showing how big their dick is. But for me, it doesn't matter. I'm all about functionality here. Alright, the next step is to transfer all of our hardware from the stock shell onto our new shell here. This is what I went with. This is a soft touch material, as all their back shells are. You have your two holes here. They also have aftermarket different paddles, you know, like gold or different colors. I think they might even have different shapes, like buttons, paddles, stuff like that, which is really cool. It's also a very nice soft touch material, just like the front shell here. So it's going to feel real good in the hand. So yeah, getting this off is pretty easy. There's this white cover here. You pop that off like that. Be gentle yet firm with it. Then go ahead and pop this bad boy out. Gonna have to take this little window out, which is good because we already have our sticker on there. I definitely want to reuse that. And then take your Phillips head screwdriver and remove this chip here. This is for the whole 8 bar. Little piece of dog hair in there, that's always good. Drop in there a screw, that's fun. Now you can pry this bad boy out. Just like that. Transfer all that over to the new Dawn shell. Make sure you get your micro USB port lined up just right so you can actually charge this bad boy and use your new controller. Perfect, perfect. Screw lines up, that's always good. It's a little tiny screw, so you can't get it confused with the ones for the shell because it's much smaller. Don't want to over screw it, over tighten it, because well, it's a delicate little chip and you don't want to mess it up. Alright, get our window back in there. I got that PS Home button down there in the garage with a little coat of matte white paint on it. One more tool that you are going to need that I forgot to mention is a little pair of snippers like this. You might be able to get away with some heavy duty scissors, but you probably want something like this. And this is to cut the terminals off. I don't know why they can't just ship it to you with the terminals already cut off. That would be super convenient, but they come off pretty easily. Should be obvious, but maybe it is worth mentioning. When I say cutting off the terminals, I mean the pins on the outside, obviously not the ones that have wires soldered to them, because, well, it wouldn't make any connection without that. But the outside prongs there, or terminals, can get snipped off. They come off pretty damn easy. Alright, so this is the ribbon cable for the Remap chip or whatever. It basically has to be lined up directly over this exposed steel part of the chipset like that, to where the two holes are lined up. Now if you do want to remap the touchpad, which we are not doing here, you are going to solder that little metal piece on the left right there to the actual button for the touchpad, and that allows you to remap the touchpad, which I don't really find a purpose for, so you're just making sure that this lines up. And how you're going to get that to stay in place is with the included double-sided tape. I don't know how good their double-sided tape is that comes with the kit. However, I do have some extra Gorilla tape around the garage, but I think I'm just going to use what the kit comes with. This kit also does come with extras of a lot of components, which is really good. In case you break anything, you don't have to call it a day. Alright, so now that we have it double-sided taped in there like that, you're just going to fold it up, and you should see if it is lined up correctly, which I hope we are. Bam. Those prongs line up like that, and there's now a little bit of exposed copper from the ribbon right there. And then we're going to take this end, fold it over, and plug it into our Remap chip like this. Right, now the other end of that ribbon cable will get slid into the Remap chip like that. Then you go ahead and slip this little black lever down, and that clips it into place. It's in there nice and snug now. Don't worry about that 3M adhesive tape on there just yet. This is also a good time to put your analog sticks back in. Now is a good time to get that front shell in place. We do still have the white one drying in the garage right now, but for now I'm just going to put in a stalker for now. Test all the face buttons to make sure everything's pressing correctly before you button everything back up. Oh, we're missing a touchpad, aren't we, guys? Probably want to have that installed, don't we? So getting the touchpad back in, it only goes in one way. It's like that. You want to make sure that little ribbon cable is up and over that bar. Seats in there like that. Good to go. Alright, getting that little ribbon cable through there for the touchpad is actually the most time-consuming and frustrating part of the install, which is pretty interesting considering that it's not even part of the kit. That's just a stock controller piece. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and install this battery door back in there, as it has no need to really be out anymore. Alright, two prongs line up, and then that reveals your hole for your Phillips head screw. Just go ahead and tighten that bad boy in. After this step, we are more or less done with the front shell. We can focus strictly on getting the LED lined up, which will give you your status of your Dawn remappable kit, and then also your this little touch foil here, which is basically a touch sensor that allows you to tap the back of your controller and remap the paddles. Alright, so there's a little tiny LED light right there. We're going to go ahead and peel off this 3M double-sided tape and line it up to where that LED light is lined up with that little pinhole right there, and that's going to let your LED status indicator light shine through. Alright, we're in there. LED light is lined up. Now we need to stick this little touch foil somewhere where you can easily press it, so I'm going to put it down here in the bottom right corner, and that'll be my little remap spot. Alright, so I got my little foil touchpad in there. It kind of just sits in there loose. You can use some like double-sided tape or something if you want it to be in there like that, but honestly, I think we're going to be okay. Get the battery installed back in, as well as the ribbon cable for the light bar. It's interesting, that ribbon cable is actually twisted up. I don't think it's going to affect anything, but I did install everything as the instructions said, and for some reason my ribbon cable is twisted up. Make sure my foil is still sitting in there where I want it, and it is. Alright, let's get our Phillips head screws back in there so the shell is actually held in place. I like to put these bottom parts in first, like that, and then the top will obviously tighten in once you start putting your screws in. Alright guys, the build is complete, and I absolutely love the way this turned out. I think the wood grain and the mint look really good. Put a flat matte finish on the paddles back there to go with that white theme. I think this turned out phenomenally. This is going to be my personal PS4 controller. I might sell it down the road or give it away or something, but for now this is going to be my daily flicking the sticks machine here. Really do love it. So I'm going to give you guys a long-term review of the paddles after I have more time with them, but initial impressions, they work really well. The remapping works pretty well. Really good tactile click. I also like how these are kind of out of the way pretty well, so you don't accidentally actuate them or anything like that. And a couple notes for the install that weren't included in the video just because I either forgot to record or, you know, I done fucked up or whatever. You want to make sure that ribbon cable is the right direction, as I did have to switch it. Also, that foil piece in there does have double-sided tape on the back that you stick to the back so you don't have to just have it loosely flopping around in there. And I think that's it. Everything else was included in there. I did miss the part where I installed the actual buttons and tightened them in, but I showed you guys a picture of that. It's very simple. That part just drops into the back shell and then tightens in, so nothing really too crazy there. But that is the initial install of the Extreme Rate Dawn Remap kit. Pretty proud of it. I think it turned out really well, and be giving you guys a long-term review of this pretty soon. All right, peace.